I have your attention, please? Greetings to the voters of Madawaska. I call this special town meeting to order. All Town of Madawaska residents are asked to please check in with the ballot clerk so that you may vote. Article 1, to choose a moderator to preside at said meeting. Do I have a motion to nominate a moderator?
I would like to nominate Fowl Ordinance as a moderator.
Do I have a second? Becky? Do I have any other nominations? Do I have a motion to cease nominations? Dave? I have a second? Your name? Dan Labatt. All those in favor of Bob Betha as moderator, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Moderator, please come forward to be sworn in.
Do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state so long as I shall continue assisting thereof. I, Robert Belford, do swear that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my ability the duty incumbent on me as moderator of this meeting according to the Constitution of the state of Maine. Good evening. My name is Bob Betha. I'm going to be your moderator tonight. There's just 3 articles, so it probably is not going to take more than 15 minutes. Little joke. A little bit of housekeeping. Unless I hear objections, I'm going to run the meeting based on the main moderator's manual. Do I hear any objections? Unanimous? We're going to operate under the main moderator's manual. The 3 articles in tonight's warrant are all ordinances. Ordinances are not like other articles. They cannot be amended. They have to be voted up or down. Cannot change them. You can discuss them. You can question about them. You can restate pros and cons about them. But we cannot amend. If somebody tries to make an amendment, they're going to be out of order, and I'll call them out of order. When you are recognized to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name, and then state your position. Comments for or against, or questions. Questions need to be addressed to me, even though you want a particular selectman or some person to answer that question. It needs to come from me, and I'll make sure that that person, if they wish to answer the question, will do so. If you are recognized to speak, come and speak. People in the audience must not interrupt. All of you will have a chance to speak on every issue, but you need to raise your hand and be recognized by the moderator. I will try to make sure that the meeting moves on in an expeditious way and that everybody who has something to say gets their chance to say it. Now, because there's a lot of people here, and there's 3 articles to go over. There may be some controversy in all of them. You may not get a chance to speak a second time. So whatever you have to say it the first time out. First article.
Point of privilege, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, Mr. David.
Can everybody hear me? Do I need to go to
No, Daniel, to the mic.
Mr. Moderator, I would ask you to be very considerate. We have 3 heated articles that will be debated tonight, and I would ask you to be very considerate in comparison to the meeting of February 28, where we had a different moderator. but there were certain individuals, taxpayers in Madawaska, that were not allowed the opportunity to speak. Now, I would ask the moderator, in consideration with the Board of Selectmen, to hear out all of the feelings, complaints, pluses to each and every article. We have some articles that we are going to discuss tonight that could shape and change the future of this community. We have articles that are being supported in two opposite directions, where the stance of the town fathers has been to try to adopt the state statutes relating to one article, but going in a totally different direction.
Mr. Daigle, I can assure you that everybody who's recognized will have a fair chance to have their say. I will not ignore anybody who has their hand up. I just may not call. I'm not going to let anybody speak a second time until everybody else has had a chance to speak.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Article 1, Article 2. Shall an ordinance entitled the Madawaska Male Fowl Ordinance be enacted? Title 30 AMRSA Section 3002, parentheses 3. Essentially, you have a copy of the Madawaska Male Fowl Ordinance. It is essentially an article or an ordinance that would prohibit roosters, cocks, and other male fowls known for their loud calls to be prohibited within high-density, medium-density, commercial, and industrial zones. Do I hear a second to accept the article as read? Do I hear a motion to accept the article? Mr. Dufour. Do I hear a second? Pardon? Okay. Now it's time for discussion. Sir, your name, please come to the mic.
My name is Richard Pelletier. I've come from Madawaska. It seems that we have a problem with the rooster, I guess, or whatever, the fowl, or whatever. What's the difference between a rooster making noise and a dog? Just remember that. Doesn't matter. Do we have an ordinance, a noise ordinance? And if we do, why is it not suffice for this type of problem that we have here? So I believe that we should vote it down, because we need to look at, just remember, the rooster makes noise, the barking dog makes noise, and a lot of other things makes noise. So I think that we should discuss that even more concerning, and I think it should be voted down, not because we should not stop it, but the thing is, I think we should have a different approach to deal with this problem. If it's through noise ordinance, a new one specifying, if you don't want animals in the city, in the town limits, then that's what it should say. We don't want animals. I mean, except dogs and whatever. And then there should be provisions. If you have a barking dog and you start, it needs to be addressed. What I'm saying is that I think it should be turned down, because we're just attacking a few birds right now. We're the laughing stock from Fort Kent to Frenchville and everywhere concerning this issue. And I don't want to be the laughing stock. I think we're better than that. And I think that we should look at also the dogs and the other noise making going on. So please let's not vote this down, because it does not make any sense until somebody comes with a better solution, especially with the noise. I'm talking about an ordinance concerning noise. Be more specific and more aggressive, maybe. And I think that's how we should go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pelletier. Mr. Daigle.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. On the male fowl ordinance, two things on my mind. If we allow a noise level in a commercial zone, that will automatically shut down a lot of very prosperous businesses in commercial zones in this community, which is certainly not a direction we want to be traveling. Secondly, the rooster, the male gender of the chicken species crows at a certain decibel level. Obviously, there has been little or no research done on this, because if this ordinance goes through as it is written here tonight, as a male fowl ordinance, tomorrow morning, the individuals involved could purchase, in conformance with the ordinance, 12 geese of the female species, of the female gender, and 6 ducks of the female gender, and they will outcrow any rooster in decibel levels if you do your research. Therefore, the ordinance as it is written, in my opinion, is totally useless. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Daigle. Any further comments or discussion? Yes, ma'am. Mrs.
I think I can answer the question about barking dogs. Barking dogs do fall under the noise ordinance. Barking dogs, they bark for more than 60 minutes. You can call animal control and you can file a complaint with them. If anybody knows a rooster, rooster will crow for a few minutes, stop, crow again, another 20 minutes later, and that can go up to 15 hours a day. The reason we're laughing stock to Fort Kent and Van Buren is because they've already placed this common sense ordinance into law. So if you look at Fort Kent and Van Buren's ordinances, they do not allow roosters, or they also have to get permission from the code enforcer. Another thing I wanted to address is that this does not affect low residential areas. So if your speed limit is not 25, you're allowed to have roosters. It's just a common sense law. And in looking at people who get, I mean, this is the first step to help maintain peace in the community. The other argument was that we're a farming community. I've lived here for, well, I've existed for 45 years. Never once did I see a farm on Main Street. To be ridiculous for that argument, there used to be cows on 11th Avenue in the soccer field. So if you want to use that argument, maybe we should bring the cows back. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Identify yourself.
My name is Brittany Patterson, and I also reside in Madawaska. The last woman who spoke is actually my neighbor. I just want to make a statement. The way that this is written currently, I get a criminal violation. It goes on my record for the rest of my life because I have a bird to feed my family. Meanwhile, the sex offender can walk into any school and get a $500 civil violation. I don't see how that is fair at all the way it's written. It needs to be rewritten. There need to be different parameters. So much acreage, so many feet to the neighboring property line. Noise ordinance, 8 to whatever it is now, I think it's 9 o'clock. Like she pointed out, it doesn't crow constantly. It's not like a barking dog at all. It crows when there's danger. It crows when the fox is stalking them. It crows when there's an eagle overhead in the summer. It crows when I bring food to let the other girls know that there's food. He even eats after they do. I really don't know what to do at this point, but I think it's ridiculous the way it's written, that I get a criminal record for having a bird. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other people wish to comment on the fowl ordinance? Yes, sir. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Hey, Mr. Moderator, my name is Aaron Sear. I'm looking at this, and it says that the non-conformance will have 30 days to gain compliance with the provision within this ordinance at the top. The problem I see with this is, how can somebody be penalized for something that was okay and then all of a sudden it's not okay? I had 5 roosters myself, and I live in a residential area. Never had any complaints. Actually, my neighbors enjoyed hearing them, believe it or not. I had to put them in the freezer for the winter because their time was up. But if I was, where I live right now, if I wanted to split hairs, I live in a residential area, but at the same time, where my chickens are on farmland. So technically, I can have as many roosters as I want. They can crow whenever they want. The land is not designated as residential. It's designated by zoning still as farmland or undeveloped. So if this argument is brought up, and I've already kind of backed myself up a little bit to ensure, because I do plan on getting them again, because they fatten up faster than the females. If there's a complaint made that the rest of the people down the street hear them, but they're actually on farmland, what then? So we're riding a fine line here, because I live in a residential area with two different zonings, literally like walking across this black line. That's how much of a difference there is. So where do I stand in this situation? Because how am I going to be held liable for a 30-day compliance when it may not be applicable to me, but I'm looking at this for myself, because when people think roosters are loud, get some regular ducks. I'll tell you right now, they'll out-quack a rooster hands down any day of the week. So I'm seeing this directed specifically at male fowl. And like somebody else mentioned a while ago, get some geese and get some ducks, and you're going to have a lot of fun. So I can see this backfiring in a really nasty way, which doesn't need to be nasty. I think this should be revisited and thought through a little more hastily, not as quick. Think it through, because it's going to cause some serious problems with those that, like myself, I live in a residential area, but where my birds are at, literally just a line. So the whole thing with the 30-day compliance to the provision in this ordinance, I find is a little excessive, because now the law's changed and they got to come into compliance with something that they've been raising for however long. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments? Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Tebow. Please come to the microphone.
Okay, my concern is with this rooster ordinance is the well-being of everybody around, and also the consideration. I grew up on a farm with roosters, okay? They are loud. They're aggressive, and the more hens that you have, the more aggressive they become. Now, if you want to raise, let's say you have 15 chickens, you don't need a rooster if you have hen-laying chickens. Egg-laying chickens. You don't need roosters, okay? And if they're saying other birds come into play, well, you know what? If that's the case, then, let's have another ordinance not to have any farm animals in residential, commercial, in the town limits. Please. I mean, come on. For me, as a social worker, the mental health and well-being of other people that have difficulty sleeping, that have PTSD, that have severe anxieties and sleep apnea. Yes, roosters will keep them awake. And yes, it is agitating. So I'd like people to have the common sense and the common decency to think about your neighbors when this is going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mr. Peter McGraw.
My property is in a commercial zone, industrial. I have the train in the back of my house that runs all night. I have traffic in front. It's not a quiet place. I don't care what kind of laws you pass. That area is not quiet. It's a commercial zone. I've been putting up with it for 30 years. I don't see why we're even bothering with this as far as my zoning. Because the train hits all the time. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, that train's going. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, your name? Come forward, please.
My name's Robert Jen. I got a question.
Could you come closer to the mic so that everybody can hear you?
In the state of Maine, ain't it illegal in an industrial, commercial zone and business zone to have the chickens and the roosters to start off with?
Is that would be a question? Is that a question for a member of the board?
Yes.
Is there anybody prepared to answer? You prepared to answer the question? Could you state the question again, please?
I asked, in a commercial or industrial or a business zone, ain't it illegal to have the chickens and the roosters to start off with? Under state of Maine law.
No, please come here.
I don't have an answer at present, but I'll get back to you when I do.
Okay, well.
Thank you.
All right.
Any further questions or discussion? There being no further questions or discussion, the matter will be put to a vote. Unless I hear any objections, I will put it up to a voice vote. That's with the blue cards that you have. Are there any objections to a show of hands? If you do have objections, we can do a secret ballot. I see no objections, therefore we're going to do a show of hands. All those in favor of approving the Article 1 ordinance, excuse me, Article 2 ordinance regarding Madawaska male fowl ordinance, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. I cannot determine who is the winner in this. I'd ask the ballot clerks to count, please. All those in favor, raise your hand and leave them up until the ballot clerks tell me they have a count of the ayes. Okay. All those against the ordinance who do not want the ordinance to pass, raise your hand. Ballot clerks, I'd like you to count the nays. I believe you can put your hands down now. When the ballot clerks have the votes, please bring it to me. Article 1 does not pass by a vote of 38 no, 34 yes. Article 2. Excuse me, Article 3. Shall an ordinance entitled March 2018 Amendment to the Town of Madawaska Sex Offender Ordinance be enacted, The title reference is Title 30A MRSA, Section 3002, parentheses 3. That is the sex offender ordinance that is in your package. And if I'm correct here, the current the current ordinance is all the printed materials, and the language that they seek to delete is crossed out. Do I hear a motion to accept Article 3 as read? Mr. Dufour. Do I hear a motion to second? Mr. Pelletier? Any discussion? Mr. Pelletier?
I don't think this should be passed tonight, and I'll tell you why. The main revised statute, okay, allows for the ordinance itself is flawed, according to Mr. Picard. So why would we come into compliance with a flawed ordinance? Not to mention, to pass any article tonight would grandfather in the existing pedophile. To move that, I think that we should move that, to table it until the state gets their act together. Now, the state says over here, state law, for whatever reason, does not prohibit sex offenders from living within 750 feet of a municipality-owned park, athletic field, or recreational or facility. So if we pass this tonight, we're agreeing to the state that we should allow this, which we don't want in the first place. So why should we vote on something, why should we vote on this when we're against it in the first place? So I believe when the state gets their act together, then we can vote on it. That's basically it. And the thing is that I believe they should be tabled, and until the state gets their act together. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Pelletier, thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, sir. Identify yourself, please.
My name is Aaron Sir, Mr. Moderator. All right. So I've looked at this, and I'm not an attorney, okay? I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I had to educate myself. Now, I read the discussion or the information that was sent to the town manager in regards to the state statute. And I agree with the interpretation that was given, that the state statute as it stands is flawed, according to the interpretation. My question is that, not a question, what I'm observing is that there is this request to amend our current town ordinance, okay? The state statute is flawed over here, metaphorically speaking, and on this side we have our town ordinance. Now, why are we going to, and if this is flawed, how can we bring this into accord with something that's flawed? It just doesn't make any sense. So, if the state law is broken, why are we wasting our time trying to amend something to bring it into compliance with a state law that is broken? It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So that means that if we vote on it tonight and it was accepted, we would have to come back. It's still not enforceable. It's not enforceable now because the state law is broken, quote unquote. So we bring this town ordinance into compliance and it's still not enforceable. So when the legislator, the legislative body finally goes back to look at this and they correct it, guess what? We're all going to be back here again to adopt another ordinance to come into compliance with the state law. So rather than waste everybody's time and trying to make something fit that's not going to fit, we're trying to put a circle into a square or a square into a circle right now. So it's not enforceable. It's been, I mean, according to these papers that I read that were sent to our town manager, and our town manager was emphatic and specific that it was not enforceable as it stands. So I say we don't vote to pass this because we're wasting our time voting for it. We're better off tabling it. That's just my opinion, because we're going to be coming back to this at some point, because this statute on the state level does not just affect Madawaska. If in fact it is flawed the way that it's been presented by these different attorneys, these different entities, then the state has to take this up, because it affects the whole state, not just Madawaska. So I say let's let the state do what it's supposed to do, fix this, and then we'll come back and visit it at some other time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Discussion? Yes. Yvonne, come on up, please.
My question is basically for information. Since...
Who's the question addressed to, Yvonne?
What was that?
Who's the question addressed to?
I would like to address the board. Since the state laws are flawed, as per the gentleman that just passed before me, and since the Town of Madawaska Ordinance is also flawed, what prevents a town from passing an ordinance, okay, that they want? Are there state restrictions that prevent a town from passing their own ordinance that is different than the state's?
Is there anybody who wishes to speak on that issue?
Okay.
Would the town manager wish to address that issue?
So to answer your question, Title 38, subsection 3014, the sex offender setback law, preempts the towns from making any restrictions further than what the two instances that they're referring to right now, A being from schools, 750 feet from a school, and 750 feet from what is erroneously written as from leased parks that are on property leased from the town, run by nonprofits. And so the law specifically preempts the entire field of legislative jurisdiction, meaning the town can't impose anything further than that. And if you read further down in the state law, it's in your packet. Everybody has the Title 38 law. It says that any ordinances shall be limited to as follows. So the towns, the state has basically said, this is it. This is all you can do.
That is the standard that they've established. And, my apologies. I'm Mr. Chairman. Yeah. My apologies.
You recognize Janet?
Yes. And I assume that once the state makes a rule and votes on a rule in MRSA, a town cannot reduce that rule. Am I correct? Can it change that? Can it reduce it? Can it make it, like you were saying, we cannot make it more restrictive. Can it be less restrictive? And that's the question. Where is the town's authority over this?
So the restrictions are up to 750 feet.
Okay.
That would be the max. So for instance, if a town wanted to be less restrictive, they could make it 500-foot setback.
That's my question exactly. I didn't ask it as clearly as I should. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dubé. Mr. Pelletier, have you spoken on this issue already? Have you spoken on this article? Yes, you have. No. Mr. Daigle.
Since the public hearing on this to discuss the details on the ordinance, there is definitely some confusion as to the restrictions making the ordinance more stringent or less stringent with the number of feet. I got some clarification at the state level on this. I was in contact with our representative, Troy Jackson. Troy Jackson looked into this in detail for me. He did get back to me, and the information that we are getting here tonight is indeed correct. Our town manager, Manager Picard, is certainly correct with the information that he has given us, that we cannot impose or we cannot adopt an ordinance that is more strict. Now, the words more strict means imposing additional hardship on an individual that is being, don't like to use the word targeted, but the individual involved with this, if you are imposing additional hardship on him, the number that we have to work with right now is 750 feet. Therefore, the town of Madawaska cannot say, no, we want 1,000 feet. Some people are under the impression that this is more strict, some are under the impression that this is less strict. But you cannot, according to the information that I've received from Representative Jackson, we cannot impose additional hardship. Secondly, again, in agreement with what we've been told by our town manager, Augusta certainly and openly admits that the law is indeed flawed. Representative Jackson told me that when they voted on this a few years ago, that it was an attempt to tweak the law, and he said when we voted on it, there were numerous loopholes in it, and he says it kind of like just got swept through with the current. And he said, we all know that we need to get back to it, but he said it is near to impossible to get this through in this legislative session. With that being said, I also made contact with Mr. Greg Paquette, who is the director of the Sex Offender Registry in Augusta. Mr. Paquette reiterated word for word what Town Manager Picard has told us, what Representative Troy Jackson has given to us. Therefore, we have to bring our ordinance into compliance with what the Maine state statute has on the books for now. But again, in accord with what we've been saying, if we do adopt state statute, well, we have no choice. We can only enforce what is on the books at the state level. But as soon as Augusta, probably in the next session, when they address this, is going to leave the town of Madawaska having to revisit this. Therefore, once again, as for myself, I would agree that tonight that this should be tabled until we have further information, until the law at the state level is changed, and then we can adopt whatever the state statute is. But as for making it more stringent, you cannot. It is not allowed by law. Thank you.
Mr. Daigle, are you making a motion to pass over or to table this article?
At this point, Mr. Moderator, I would like to make a motion that for the time being that we table this entire article.
Is there a second for that motion? Mr. Searwise, second. This is the kind of motion that requires 2/3 approval. Unless I hear objection, we're going to vote on the motion to table or pass over the... There's no discussion on this article, on this kind of motion. Right on the floor right now is a motion to pass over or to table the article. In order to do that, we need 2/3 of a vote, 2/3 vote. Unless I hear objections, we're going to do a count of hands. If there are objections, we're going to have a secret ballot. I don't see. Yes, sir. Do you object to the method of vote? We can't discuss it. There's no discussion on this motion. It's either vote or don't vote. Okay. All those in favor? Well, first of all, I don't see any objections. Therefore, we're going to do a show of hands. All those in favor of passing over or tabling this article, which means we just put it off until a later date, raise your hand. All those opposed to tabling or passing over the motion, raise your hand. The motion to table or pass over the article passes. Article 4, Shall the Town of Madawaska adopt the Municipality of Madawaska Moratorium Ordinance on retail marijuana establishment, retail marijuana stores, retail marijuana social clubs, and retail marijuana cultivation facilities in the form attached hereto, which shall be in effect for a period of 180 days, retroactive, commencing February 1st, 2018. The reference to the statutes of the state of Maine is Title 30A, MRSA, Section 4356. I believe your package includes a copy of the ordinance. Do I hear a motion to accept the ordinance as read? Mr. Dufour, do I hear a second? Peter Burgoyne. Is there any discussion regarding Article 3? Yes, Mr. Pelletier.
A while back, I brought this to the board, and I was taken out and for some technicalities, and maybe they were right. But the thing is, we're visiting it tonight. Not against medical marijuana, but you look around, you look like Fort Fairfield and other towns. They're not having anything of it. I mean, Fort Fairfield even looked at the when they voted for it, when the governor ran the referendum. The referendum shows that the majority of the people in Madawaska voted for not to have this recreational marijuana. I'm not talking about medical now. Recreational marijuana and the cultivation and all that stuff. Not only that, the marijuana issue. They said they don't target the children. Well, if you see the packages, and I've been around town and I've shown them the pictures of how they package the marijuana. It looks like a Kit Kat bar. It looks like a Hershey's bar. It looks so. I really believe that they're targeting our kids because and I don't understand why Nestle and all these bars or whatever have not come forward, or they're waiting until something happens and then they're going to come forward. But the thing is, you cannot, the THC in it. I give you an example. You buy a lollipop, they call it. You don't know how much THC is in there. It's not regulated. So I've seen even an individual that has a marijuana card. Speaking to him, he's all fine. He has a card. He's doing very well. All of a sudden, he takes a piece of that lollipop. Now remember, it's not regulated. All of a sudden, an hour later, he looks at me and says, "You need to get out of here." That's what's the matter. He says, "I'm so high, I don't know what to do." Now remember one thing. What if he's under the wheel of a car? He doesn't think he's doing wrong. Because he has a marijuana card, which he's justified to have. But now we're talking about not the medical, but even in the medical, there's problems. Now you can just imagine the other stuff. Now people can be able to have so many plants on the lawn and this and that. The kids that can't buy it, they'll steal it. It'll cause more problems. And I can bet you ENS already has problems right now, because I know Colorado has a lot of problems with their children. They say that the kids go to school, they're high, and their grades have gone down like you wouldn't believe it. Now let's look at the children at least.
Mr. Pelletier, I'm going to cut you off at this point. The article that's before us has to do with a moratorium on the town approving or accepting applications for retail marijuana sale. It is not whether or not there should be retail marijuana sale. The state of Maine has already decided there will be retail marijuana sale. The article deals solely with the moratorium on the town accepting and processing applications for retail marijuana sale.
I think we should not have marijuana, period. I mean, recreational marijuana. I'm against that. That's what I'm saying.
You had your say. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Aaron Sear. I see this as, for me personally, I'm not speaking for Anybody else? For myself personally, I think this moratorium should be put into effect. And the reason why is that it is going to affect the availability for patients. We already have it on a medical scale, or it's available medically throughout the state. Once we introduce this into our community, like you said, it is already the law, there's stipulations and stuff being worked out. But once we introduce recreational into an area, it's going to affect the availability for those that are patients to be able to get their medicine. There's going to be a lot of competition, and it's going to drive the quality of the medicine that people are getting now down the drain, because it's going to flood the market. So I vote for the moratorium. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments or discussion regarding Article 4 dealing with a moratorium on accepting marijuana applications and processing them? I don't see any other hands, therefore, discussion is closed. Again, we're going to have a show of hands vote on this article, unless there's somebody that objects. If there's an objection, we'll have a ballot, a secret ballot. Yes, vote.
Did you have a motion on this yet? I don't think there's been a motion.
I'm sorry, Beth. If you want to speak, you need to come to the microphone.
I don't think there's been a motion made on this yet.
There has been a motion and it's been seconded, Beth. Yeah. Mr. Daigle? Sneaking one in, Dan.
Mr. Moderator, could you very quickly explain to the audience here exactly, this could be a little bit confusing about the moratorium. If we vote a yes, that means that there will be no sales of marijuana in Madawaska, correct? Temporarily. Is that correct? Is that the intent of the board?
As a moderator, I don't believe I can comment on that. I would like to have would the town manager wish to speak on that issue?
We'd just like a little explanation to make sure that people are perfectly clear in their mind as to what a yes vote means and what a no vote means. Thank you.
So, just to be clear, this moratorium has nothing to do, does not affect medical side of things. The law, it's also important to know that the law already allows recreational use. The town has no authority in this at all and no say in the matter. This moratorium merely puts a temporary halt on the sales and possible grow facilities in Madawaska. It is temporary for 6 months, and it could be renewed by the board of selectmen if, for instance, for good cause. And the good cause would be, we're working on some local ordinances, some zoning rules, things to that effect. The board doesn't have the authority to extend a moratorium beyond 6 months unless they have good reason to do so. So to answer your question, a yes vote puts a halt, it puts a moratorium in place for at least 6 months. And a no vote, there is no moratorium in place.
Are there any other comments or discussion? There being no further comments or discussion, again, we're going to do it by show of hands unless there's objection to show of hands, in which case we do it by secret ballot. Any objections to show of hands? I see no objections, therefore, all those in favor of passing Article 4, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Article 4 passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Sewa, seconded by Mrs. Thibodeau. All those in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Meeting adjourned. Oh, you look